But what the world heard as a threat was a terrified promise in the dark. A charity gala, lights out. 2 little boys lost in the crowd, saved by a shy housekeeper with a steady voice and a brave song. Then the clip goes viral. Headlines explode. The rich guardian is called a monster. The maid is called worse. As the city judges, a power player pushes for custody, a forged contract appears, and a family's future is put on trial. Only one thing stands between rumor and ruin: a woman who chooses kindness over fame, and a man who chooses the children's privacy over his own name. But when a storm traps the boys in an elevator and the truth finally fights back, one secret still threatens everything. Will courage, faith, and community be enough to save 2 boys and turn a scandal into a home? The crystal chandeliers of the Armitage Hotel's grand ballroom cast a warm golden glow over the evening's festivities. Hundreds of teardrops of light danced across the polished marble floor and sparkled against the silk-covered tables. A string quartet played softly from the corner stage, their gentle melodies floating above the murmur of Seattle's elite gathered for the Children's Hospital fundraiser. The rich, resonant notes of the cello mingled with the lighter tones of the violins, creating a soundtrack of refined elegance. Through the tall windows that stretched nearly from floor to ceiling, dark storm clouds gathered, promising spring rain that would soon wash the city streets clean. Mara Benitez adjusted her black uniform vest and balanced another tray of champagne flutes, the delicate glasses tinkling softly against one another. Her sensible shoes squeaked slightly on the polished floor as she wove between designer gowns and tuxedos, careful not to brush against the expensive fabrics. She'd worked dozens of events like this to save for nursing school, each shift bringing her a step closer to her dream. But tonight felt different. The air crackled with an energy she couldn't quite name, a tension that hung beneath the surface of polite smiles and practiced small talk. Near the center of the room, Ethan Hale stood with his 6-year-old nephews, Mateo and Micah. The twins wore matching navy suits with crisp white shirts and tiny bow ties, their dark curls neatly combed, though one rebellious lock had fallen across Mateo's forehead. They stayed close to their uncle's legs, eyes wide at the crowd, tiny fingers occasionally reaching up to grasp at the fabric of his perfectly tailored pants. Though Ethan's technology company was worth billions, he rarely appeared at public events, preferring the privacy of his offices and home. Tonight was different. Pediatric therapy had become personal since he'd become the boys' guardian after the tragedy that had shaken their small family to its core. "It's okay," Mara heard him whisper as she passed nearby with her tray. "Just 15 more minutes, then we can go home and read your favorite story." His voice was gentle, but carried the weariness of someone who had shouldered an unexpected burden with determination rather than complaint. Mrs. Dottie Price, her silver hair swept into an elegant knot that spoke of decades of practiced dignity, kept a watchful eye from her post near the emergency exit. Her volunteer security badge gleamed under the lights, but her straight posture and alert gaze betrayed her military background. She nodded approvingly as she watched Ethan bend down to whisper something reassuring to Micah, whose small hand had tightened around his uncle's fingers. "Ethan, darling." A sleek figure in red silk glided through the crowd like a shark through calm waters. Vivian Cross air-kissed his cheek, her diamond earrings catching the light and throwing prisms across his face. Her perfume, expensive and slightly overwhelming, created an invisible barrier between her and the twins, who leaned away instinctively. "The PR firm misses you. The offer to handle your image still stands. We could make all this—" Her manicured hand waved vaguely towards the boys. "So much easier to navigate in the public eye." "We're doing fine, Vivian," Ethan said quietly. one hand resting protectively on Micah's shoulder, his thumb moving in small, comforting circles. His eyes never left the boys as he spoke, making it clear where his priorities lay. The first fat drops of rain spattered against the windows, creating dark streaks that distorted the city lights beyond. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a low warning of the storm's approach. Matteo pressed closer to his uncle's leg, his small face tightening with anxiety at the sound. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then plunged the room into darkness so complete it felt like velvet against the skin. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by nervous laughter that died quickly. A loud pop echoed from the service corridor, probably a circuit breaker giving way under the storm's pressure, but someone near the bar screamed, "Gun!" The word ricocheted through the darkness like a bullet itself. Panic erupted with frightening speed. Bodies surged toward the exits, high heels abandoned, champagne glasses shattering underfoot. In the chaos, Ethan's grip on the twins was broken. Mara saw them spin away from him, nearly knocked over by the rushing crowd, their small faces frozen in terror. Without thinking, she dropped her tray with a crash that no one noticed, and pushed against the flow of people, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Matteo! Micah!" she called, dropping to her hands and knees to navigate through the forest of legs and fallen chairs. The emergency lights had kicked on, casting everything in an eerie red glow that made the scene feel like something from a nightmare. The boys had been swept toward the back stairwell, huddled together against the wall, tears streaming down their identical faces. Mara dropped to her knees beside them, meeting their frightened eyes with a steadiness she didn't entirely feel. "Hey there," she said softly, her voice cutting through their panic. "Let's take a brave breath together, okay? In for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. She demonstrated, filling her lungs slowly. Now out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her exhale was deliberate, inviting them to follow. The twins followed her lead, their small chests rising and falling in sync with hers. Matteo hiccuped once, but his breathing steadied. Mara guided them to a nearby staff lounge, away from the crushing crowd, her hand gentle but firm on their shoulders as she steered them to safety. The emergency lights cast everything in a dim red glow that made the ordinary room seem like a sanctuary. "You're so brave," she told them, helping them onto a worn sofa. "Your uncle will find us here, I promise. He'll be looking for you right now." Ethan burst through the door moments later, his face white with fear, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Relief flooded his features when he spotted the twins, followed immediately by a protective intensity that transformed his entire bearing. He moved to place himself between the door and the group, his hands shaking with adrenaline, but his stance solid and unyielding. "Your body is mine to protect until I have my sons," he blurted out, clearly meaning for Mara to stay behind him while he secured the twins. The awkward phrasing hung in the air for a moment, before Ethan seemed to realize what he'd said. A subtle movement in the hallway caught Mara's eye. A boom mic quickly withdrawing through the partially open door, its operator clearly delighted with what they'd captured. Security restored power within minutes, the sudden brightness making them all blink. Outside, the quartet had resumed tuning their instruments, the normalcy of their scales a jarring contrast to the momentary chaos. Mrs. Dotty appeared in the doorway, looking relieved, though her hand still rested near the taser concealed beneath her volunteer jacket. "All clear," she announced, her eyes quickly assessing everyone in the room. "Just a blown transformer down the block. Everyone's safe." In the lounge's harsh fluorescent light, Mara saw the time on the wall clock, 8:12 p.m. Her heart was still racing, her uniform stained with spilled champagne and something that might have been chocolate from a dessert tray overturned in the panic. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, pulling out a business card from his inner jacket pocket, while the twins clung to his legs, their faces pressed against the fine wool of his pants. for helping them, for knowing exactly what they needed. His eyes, a deep brown that matched the boys', held genuine gratitude, mixed with something that might have been recognition of a kindred spirit. Mara took the card, her fingers trembling slightly as the adrenaline began to ebb. The heavy cardstock felt substantial between her fingers, embossed with simple black text. In the hallway beyond, she glimpsed a photographer, checking his recorder, a satisfied smirk playing across his face as he whispered into a cell phone. By 9:00 p.m., the quartet was playing again as if nothing had happened, the rich notes of Vivaldi rising towards the repaired chandeliers. Servers circulated with fresh trays of champagne and canapes. Guests laughed perhaps a bit too loudly, embarrassed by their earlier panic. But Mara knew as she slipped the business card into her pocket that the damage had already been recorded, words twisted out of context, ready to be weaponized in ways none of them could yet imagine. The morning sun had barely crept over Seattle's skyline when the first notification pinged. Mara blinked at her phone's screen, confused by the surge of messages flooding her inbox, the little red number climbing higher with each passing second. The top one made her stomach drop. Contract suspended pending investigation of incident at Armitage Hotel. She read it twice, hoping the words might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. She clicked the link in her catering agency's email with trembling fingers and felt the blood drain from her face, leaving her lightheaded and cold. There it was, splashed across Seattle Scoop's homepage in bold, accusatory text. Tech billionaire's dark secret? The headline pulsed like a warning beacon. Below, a grainy audio clip played on loop. Your body is mine. My son's. 7 seconds of words torn from context, stripped of meaning, and served with a side of wild speculation that twisted her stomach into knots. The snippet completely erased what had actually happened, her calming 2 panicking children using techniques she'd learned specifically for such situations. Her hands shaking uncontrollably now, Mara watched helplessly as the story spread like wildfire across every platform. Good Morning Seattle ran a segment at 7:30, their perfectly coiffed hosts trading concerned looks as they discussed troubling allegations surrounding one of our city's most prominent businessmen. Their expressions of shock seemed rehearsed, hungry for ratings. Social media exploded with hashtags and hot takes from people who weren't even there. Comment sections filled with amateur sleuths claiming to know the real story between Mara and Ethan, spinning tales more fiction than fact. Did you see this? Her roommate Rachel burst in without knocking, still in rumpled pajamas, her eyes wide with excitement that made Mara's heart sink further. You're trending. Your name is literally everywhere. Mara sank onto her bed, the mattress creaking beneath her weight as her world crumbled around her. It wasn't like that, she whispered, her voice catching. There was a panic attack. The twins were scared. They couldn't breathe. I was just helping them. Her phone buzzed again, vibrating against her palm like an angry wasp. Another cancellation from her backup serving job at the downtown bistro, then another from the weekend wedding she'd been counting on. By 8 o'clock, her entire weekend schedule had evaporated completely, taking with it the rent money she'd been carefully calculating. Across town, in the hushed sanctuary of Ethan's home office, his PR team was having a collective meltdown, their voices rising over one another as they paced on expensive carpet. Just release the security footage, his head of communications pleaded, pushing designer glasses up his nose for the dozenth time. One clear video showing what actually happened, and this all goes away. We could have this contained by lunchtime. Ethan stood motionless at the floor-to-ceiling window, his attention fixed on Mateo and Micah in the garden below. They were helping Mrs. Dotty plant spring bulbs in the freshly turned soil, but their movements were hesitant, lacking their usual enthusiasm. Last night's bedtime had been particularly rough. Too many strange cars crawling past their quiet street, Too many camera flashes piercing through the security gates, frightening questions about why people were suddenly watching their house. "No," he said firmly, his reflection resolute in the glass. "The footage shows their faces clearly, their father's photo on my phone screen, the panic in their eyes. I won't do it." He turned to face his team, his decision non-negotiable. "Sir, with respect, your reputation." The PR director started again, clutching her tablet like a shield. "Isn't worth their peace of mind." Ethan's tone left no room for argument, cutting through the tension like a blade. "They've been through enough already." His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Dotty, her practical wisdom arriving just when he needed it most. "Footage exists. We can blur faces. Tactical patience wins wars." He considered this sensible middle ground, watching the twins below with a protective ache in his chest. Micah had stopped digging and was pressing close to Mrs. Dotty's side, staring with wide eyes at something beyond the wrought iron fence. Probably another photographer with a telephoto lens hunting for the perfect shot to sell. At 10:30, Ethan's driver took him through back roads to the Armitage Hotel, avoiding the main streets where reporters might be waiting. The quiet cafe off the lobby was nearly empty, just a couple of business travelers tapping on laptops. He chose a corner table partially screened by potted plants and waited, checking his watch every few minutes. Mara arrived precisely at 11, neither early nor late, her shoulders visibly tense beneath her simple cardigan. She wore faded jeans and a navy sweater that had seen better days, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup to hide the shadows of exhaustion under her eyes or the worry lines forming between her brows. "Thank you for coming," Ethan said, standing respectfully as she approached. "Please sit. Can I get you anything?" She settled across from him, hands folded tightly in her lap as if holding herself together. "I've lost both my jobs," she said quietly, her voice steady despite everything. "And my landlord called this morning, nervous about paparazzi hanging around the building entrance. He mentioned something about maintaining a respectable environment for tenants. I know, I'm sorry this is happening to you." Ethan leaned forward, his coffee untouched between them. "I need to explain why I haven't released the full security video from last night." He told her about the twins' faces clearly visible in the footage, their father's photo displayed on his phone screen, his unbreakable promise to protect their privacy above all else. But Mrs. Dotty suggested we could blur sensitive details, the boys' faces, any identifying information. Would you be comfortable with that approach? It might help set the record straight. "Of course," Mara said without hesitation, relief washing over her tired features. "I just want my life back, my routine, my anonymity." She glanced down at her worn handbag, where her phone continued to buzz with notifications. Ethan pulled out a cream-colored envelope from his jacket pocket. "Until we resolve this completely, please let me cover your lost wages. It's the least I can do after what you did for Matteo and Micah." Mara shook her head firmly, something like pride straightening her spine. "I can't take your money. It would only feed the story, make it look like you're buying my silence, or worse. I'd rather struggle than confirm their suspicions." "Then at least let my driver take you home safely. The media's staking out bus stops and train stations, hoping to catch you for a quote or unflattering photo. Daniel knows how to avoid being followed." She hesitated, weighing her dignity against practicality, then nodded. "Thank you. Just today, though." As they stood to leave, Ethan noticed her hands were still shaking slightly, the same fine tremor they'd had last night after she'd knelt on the hotel floor, coaching his nephews through breathing exercises without a second thought for how it might look to onlookers. The driver took a circuitous route through side streets and residential neighborhoods to avoid being followed, doubling back occasionally to ensure no one tailed them. Mara watched Seattle slide past her window in contemplative silence. the morning's grey skies finally clearing to reveal patches of hopeful blue. Her phone buzzed constantly in her pocket, like an angry hornet. But she didn't check it anymore. She already knew what she'd find. More cancellations, more questions, more assumptions from people who didn't know her at all. By late afternoon, the clip had crossed 1 million views on various platforms, spawning reaction videos and amateur analysis. By nightfall, Mara's landlord was knocking on her door, nervously asking if that billionaire thing would bring trouble to the building and wondering aloud if perhaps she might consider alternative living arrangements until things quiet down. Mrs. Dottie's building workshop smelled of fresh sawdust and banana bread. Sunlight filtered through the high basement windows, casting warm, golden patches across the community room's worn wooden tables. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg lingered in the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of wood shavings. Mara had arrived early to set up, her still warm loaf wrapped in a clean blue and white checkered kitchen towel, the heat from the bread creating a small patch of condensation on the fabric. At exactly 2 o'clock, footsteps echoed on the creaky wooden stairs. Ethan appeared first, his usual sharp suit replaced by casual weekend wear, a soft grey sweater and dark jeans that somehow still managed to look perfectly pressed. His shoulders seemed less tense today, though his eyes remained watchful. Behind him, 2 small figures clung to his legs like shadows, tiny fingers gripping the fabric of his pants. "Boys," he said gently, crouching down to their level. "You remember Miss Mara from the hotel, the one who helped when things got noisy?" Mateo and Micah peered around their uncle's knees with identical cautious expressions. They were mirror images in matching blue sweaters, their dark curls slightly mussed as if they'd been running fingers through them nervously. One gripped a worn stuffed elephant with a missing ear. The other held its identical twin, though its trunk was slightly frayed at the end. Their wide brown eyes darted around the room, checking exits and corners before settling back on Mara. "Hi there," Mara said softly, staying where she was, making herself small and unthreatening. She kept her hands visible, her voice even. "I brought something that smells pretty good. Want to help me unwrap it?" "No rush. Whenever you're ready." The twins exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them in the way that only twins can manage, but didn't move from their safe harbor behind Ethan. "Remember how we did our brave breath at the hotel?" Mara demonstrated, counting on her fingers with exaggerated movements. "In for 4, hold for 1, out for 4, just like this." She breathed deeply, her shoulders rising dramatically before falling again. To everyone's surprise, both boys followed along, their small shoulders rising and falling in perfect sync. Their stuffed elephants rose and fell with each breath too, joining the calming ritual. "That's perfect," Mara said with genuine warmth in her voice. "Now, can you help me spot 3 blue things in this room? It's a little game I play sometimes when I'm in a new place." Micah pointed shyly to his sweater, his finger barely extending. Mateo's eyes darted around before landing on a paint can in the corner. "The lid," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the hum of the building's heating system. "Good ones. You have eagle eyes. I see a blue folder over there too." Mara smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Would you like to try the banana bread now? I put extra chocolate chips in." "It." They nodded simultaneously, finally taking tentative steps away from Ethan's protective shadow. Mrs. Dottie appeared with plates and napkins, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she moved. Her presence was warm and steady as always, bringing an additional layer of security to the room. "There we go," Mrs. Dottie said, her voice like warm honey. Nothing fixes worries like something sweet to nibble on. As the boys nibbled their snacks, leaving crumbs on their sweaters, Ethan pulled Mara aside to a small corner table. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion he clearly worked to control. They haven't been sleeping well since Friday, taking turns staying awake, watching the door. I found them both squeezed into one bed this morning, backs to the wall. Mara's heart squeezed painfully in her chest. "That must be so hard to watch. Children shouldn't have to feel like they need to stand guard." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration that seemed to surprise even him. The carefully maintained composure slipped for just a moment. "Their father, my brother James, died in a climbing accident last year. A freak storm on what should have been a routine climb. They were just starting to feel secure again when this happened. 2 steps forward, 10 steps back." "I'm so sorry," Mara said, meaning it from the depths of her heart. "About your brother, and about what happened at the hotel." "Actually?" Ethan continued, straightening his shoulders as if physically readjusting his emotional armor. "That's partly why I wanted to meet today." He pulled out a neatly organized folder from his messenger bag. "I have a proposition I'd like you to consider." They sat at a table while the twins helped Mrs. Dotty sort craft supplies into colorful bins. Micah was carefully separating buttons by color, while Mateo arranged popsicle sticks in perfect rows. Ethan laid out his idea. Would Mara consider becoming the boys' after-school caregiver? The hours would be 3 to 7:30, Monday through Friday. He explained, tapping the printed schedule with his index finger. "Weekends optional, entirely your choice, no pressure either way. I'd pay double the standard rate, with clear professional boundaries. The boys need stability right now, and they respond to you in a way I haven't seen with anyone else." He opened the folder to reveal a neatly typed document, each section clearly labeled and organized. "I've outlined everything: school pickup procedures, snack preparation guidelines, homework assistance expectations, starting the bedtime routine. There's also a strict privacy clause: no photos, no social media, complete confidentiality at all times. Their safety depends on it." Mara read through the mini-contract carefully, her finger tracing each line. The terms were straightforward, the boundaries crystal clear. The salary made her nursing school application seem suddenly possible rather than a distant dream. She could almost feel the weight of unpaid bills lifting from her shoulders. "This isn't about the media situation," Ethan added, his voice dropping lower. "Or at least, not entirely. The boys trust you. That's rare. They've been through so much change already." Across the room, Micah was showing Mrs. Dotty how to do the brave breath, his little chest puffing out with importance. His brother counted along on small fingers, their stuffed elephants watching from a safe perch on the craft table. "Could I have 24 hours to think about it?" Mara asked, folding the contract carefully. "It's a big decision, and I want to be sure I can give them what they need." "Of course." Ethan handed her a copy of the contract in a crisp manila envelope. "Take whatever time you need. They deserve someone who's certain." Later, on the bus ride home, Mara found a quiet spot near the back, away from curious eyes and conversations. The city lights were beginning to flicker on as dusk settled. She closed her eyes, letting the gentle motion rock her as she prayed, the envelope warm in her hands. "Lord, give me wisdom," she whispered, her breath fogging the cool window. "Show me the right path. These boys have been through so much already." She pulled out her phone and scrolled to her mother's contact, pressing call before she could second-guess herself. "Mummy, I need your advice about something important." She explained the situation in detail, the contract, the boundaries, her concerns about dignity versus opportunity, the twins' vulnerable eyes. "Mi amor," her mother said softly, her voice crackling slightly over the connection. "Sometimes God sends help wrapped in strange packages. Sometimes the blessing is not just for them, but for you too. What does your heart tell you when you think about these little ones? Mara watched the city roll past, thinking of two small boys counting breaths together, their synchronized movements speaking of both trauma and resilience. She thought of the way they had slowly emerged from behind Ethan's legs, brave despite their fear. By Monday at 9 a.m., after a night of prayer and consideration, Mara had typed a simple reply on her phone. Yes, with the boundaries we discussed. I'll be there for them. The penthouse elevator opened silently to polished marble floors that gleamed under soft, recessed lighting. Mrs. Reynolds, the house manager, greeted Mara with a crisp efficiency that matched her perfectly pressed uniform and the tight bun at the nape of her neck. "Welcome to your first day," she said, leading Mara through a sun-filled great room where light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting warm rectangles across plush area rugs. "The boys will be here at 3:15. Let me show you around first." The tour revealed a space both luxurious and thoughtfully child-friendly, rounded furniture corners padded with clear protectors, built-in safety gates disguised as decorative elements, and a dedicated playroom filled with neatly organized shelves of books and educational toys arranged by category. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances and spotless granite countertops, its enormous double-door refrigerator covered in the twins' artwork, finger paintings, traced handprints, and wobbly letters spelling, "I love you." "This is where we'll set up your station." Mrs. Reynolds indicated a corner desk positioned near both the kitchen and the playroom entrances, offering a perfect vantage point. "And here's their schedule, color-coded by activity type." Mara studied the laminated timetable while unpacking her bag, fingers tracing over the neat blocks of time. She pulled out a corkboard and some colorful markers, red, blue, green, and purple, arranging them carefully on the desktop. "What's that for?" Mrs. Reynolds asked, her eyebrow raising slightly. "A truth and kindness board," Mara explained, hanging it carefully on the wall beside her desk. "Left side for what people are saying, right side for what we can do instead. The twins might hear things at school or from other children. This helps them process it in a healthy way." By 3 o'clock, she had also arranged a sticker chart for routines: homework, hand-washing, reading time, bedtime preparations, each section with spaces for golden stars that caught the light when she tilted the paper. The elevator chimed with a gentle musical tone. Two backpack-wearing tornadoes burst in, sneakers squeaking against the marble, followed by their stone-faced security escort, who nodded professionally at Mara. "Miss Mara!" Micah called out, his whole face lighting up. "You're really here! I told Matteo you would be! Look what I drew!" Matteo waved a paper airplane decorated with blue and green marker stripes. "It's a supersonic jet. It flies faster than light." Monday flowed into a comfortable rhythm of healthy snacks laid out on colorful plates, homework completed at the dining table with patient guidance, and getting-to-know-you games that filled the penthouse with genuine laughter. By 7 o'clock, both boys had earned their first sticker stars, which they pressed onto the chart with solemn pride. Tuesday, 3 hours p.m. The school pickup line curved around the block like a sluggish snake, cars inching forward beneath the afternoon sun. Mara waited in the designated spot, watching parents shuffle forward with varying degrees of patience, some checking watches while others chatted with other waiting adults. "Can we go to the library?" Matteo asked as they walked to the car, his small hand slipping naturally into Mara's. "Please. Mrs. Wilson told us about chapter books." "Yeah, please," Micah echoed, bouncing on his toes. "They have dinosaur books too." Mara checked with their security detail, a woman named Alicia today, who nodded approval after calling it in on her discreet earpiece. 20 minutes later, both boys clutched brand-new library cards like they were made of gold, fingers tracing their printed names with wonder. Pick 2 books each, Mara said, guiding them through shelves that towered above their small frames. We'll start a reading routine before bedtime. That evening, as she helped them into dinosaur-patterned pajamas, Micah tugged her sleeve with hesitant fingers. Can we pray? He whispered, eyes serious. Daddy used to do it every night. Mara knelt beside their beds, the carpet soft under her knees. No performance, no grand gestures, just quiet words of thanks for the day and requests for protection through the night. From the doorway, Ethan watched, his expression unreadable but his shoulders less tense than usual, one hand resting against the frame as if steadying himself. Wednesday, 7:00 p.m. One more story? Matteo pleaded, clutching his library book to his chest, his eyelids already drooping. Just one tiny chapter? You already had 2. Mara smiled, gently taking the book and marking their place with a paper bookmark. Time for brave breaths, remember? They did their breathing exercise together, in for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 8. The routine now familiar and comforting. Mara dimmed the lights with a gentle twist of the switch, turned on their constellation nightlight that sprinkled the ceiling with tiny stars, and began humming softly, a melody her own mother had once sung. By 7:15, both boys were sound asleep. No tag team watching where one stayed awake to guard the other. No whispered fears about what tomorrow might bring. In the kitchen, Mara prepared the next day's snack containers with careful attention. Apple slices arranged in flower patterns, peanut butter sandwiches cut with a star-shaped cookie cutter, and carrot sticks standing like little soldiers beside a small container of hummus. She was adding a note to the Truth and Kindness board when Ethan came in, his footsteps almost soundless on the tile. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights twinkled like earthbound stars, blinking red and white and gold against the darkening sky. Outside, a persistent photographer waited behind the building's security perimeter, camera ready for any glimpse of the famous family, but up here in their sanctuary, peace reigned. They're both asleep, Mara reported, capping her marker. No rotating guard duty tonight. Micah didn't even ask to leave the hall light on. Ethan nodded, studying the board where she'd written in her neat handwriting. What people say, something must be wrong. What we do, show what's right. His fingers traced the edge of the corkboard thoughtfully. About that, he said, meeting her eyes directly for perhaps the first time. I'd like to offer you a permanent position. Month-to-month contract, same terms we discussed. The boys, they respond to you. Mara thought of library cards clutched in small hands and whispered prayers in the dark, of trust built in small moments like stickers earned and fears conquered. Yes, she said simply, the word hanging between them like a bridge. I'd like that very much. At dawn on Thursday, a courier slid a thick envelope under Ethan's door, the soft whisper of paper against marble, the only sound in the quiet penthouse. Ethan's hands shook as he read the legal documents. 30 pages of accusations, press clippings, and carefully crafted allegations. Vivian's signature, precise and confident, stretched across the bottom line. The smell of coffee brewing in the background couldn't mask the sour taste of dread that filled his mouth. The kitchen counter felt cold under his palms as he steadied himself. The marble surface was unyielding, much like the words on the pages before him. Down the hall he could hear the twins getting ready for school, their voices mixing with Mara's gentle instructions about matching socks. The innocent sounds of their morning routine made the threat in his hands feel even more sinister. His lawyer's voice crackled through the phone. She's requesting an emergency hearing for temporary guardianship, citing moral unfitness, instability in the home environment. The attorney spoke with clinical detachment, but Ethan could detect the note of concern beneath the professional tone. She can't, Ethan started, his voice catching in his throat before he could finish. "Dad?" Matteo appeared in the doorway, Micah right behind him. Their matching pajama pants and mismatched socks spoke of their hasty morning routine. Matteo's hair stood up in the back, and Micah still clutched his toothbrush. "What's wrong?" Before Ethan could answer, Micah's eyes went wide. "Are we going to lose our home?" His small voice trembled, the toothbrush now dangling forgotten in his grip. Mara appeared behind them, her face calm but her eyes concerned. The steady rhythm of her breathing was deliberate, modeling what she wanted them to do. "Hey guys, let's finish getting ready. Remember our brave breaths?" Her hand gently touched each boy's shoulder, warm and reassuring. She guided them back to their room, but the damage was done. Ethan could hear Micah's hitched breathing, Matteo's worried questions. The soft murmur of Mara's voice carried through the hallway as she helped them through their morning routine, incorporating the calming techniques they'd been practicing. When Mara returned 15 minutes later, the twins safely occupied with breakfast at the kitchen table, spooning cereal into their mouths with unusual quietness. Her expression was determined. The morning sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the resolve in her eyes. "We need a plan," she said quietly, positioning herself so the boys couldn't hear. "Not just legal defense, a way to keep their world steady while this plays out." Her fingers tapped softly against her thigh, a subtle indication of her mind already working. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, noting absently that he needed a haircut. One more thing to add to his overwhelming list. "Vivian's calling you a compromised employee. She's trying to use that audio clip to paint me as unstable, and you as I don't even know what." The frustration and fear in his voice was evident despite his attempt to keep it contained. "Then we show them what's real," Mara said. She pulled out her phone, opening a notes app, the screen filled with detailed entries. "Sleep logs. I've been keeping them since day one. Homework completion records. We can ask neighbors who've seen you with the boys to write statements." Her fingers scrolled through weeks of meticulous documentation. Times, observations, progress notes. The elevator chimed its familiar 3-note melody, and Mrs. Dotty stepped out, her usual tool belt replaced by a neat blazer. Her silver hair was pulled back in a professional bun, and she carried a leather portfolio. "I heard," she said simply, "and I am here to help." The determination in her weathered face matched the sturdy sensibility of her orthopedic shoes. She sat at the kitchen island, her presence somehow making the space feel more grounded. The scent of her subtle lavender perfume mingled with the coffee aroma. "I knew James, your brother, from the VA clinic. Watched him talk about those boys and about you, Ethan. I can testify to the kind of guardian you are." Her eyes, behind practical rimless glasses, held decades of wisdom. Ethan's throat tightened. "You never mentioned—" The revelation caught him off guard, another piece of his brother's life he hadn't known. "Wasn't my story to tell." Mrs. Dotty shrugged, her practical hands folding neatly on the countertop. "But now it matters." She opened her portfolio, revealing organized notes and what appeared to be contact information for several people. His lawyer called back with a hearing date. Tuesday, 10:12 a.m., 5 days to prove stability. The finality of the time and date sent a chill through Ethan's body. They mapped out a plan over coffee while the twins finished their cereal, occasionally glancing toward the adults with curious eyes. Friday. Meet with the school counselor, document the boys' adjustment. Saturday. Host a board game night with building neighbors, normal social interaction in a safe space. Sunday. Their usual quiet church service, followed by park time. Monday. Preparation with the lawyer. Keep everything as routine as possible, Mara emphasized, highlighting key points in her notebook with a blue pen. Kids need predictability, especially now. Her handwriting was neat and clear, much like her thinking. That evening, as Mara helped the twins with homework at the dining table, littered with worksheets and coloured pencils, Ethan noticed new additions to the Truth and Kindness board. Left side. People might say scary things. Right side. We remember what's true. We are loved. We are safe. We are family. The colourful markers and careful lettering showed Mara had taken time to make it special. Micah pointed to it while getting his bedtime sticker, his pyjama sleeve sliding up his thin arm. Miss Mara says we're going to keep having normal days. His eyes, so like James's, searched Ethan's face for confirmation. That's right, Ethan said, his voice firm despite his churning stomach. He smoothed Micah's cowlick with gentle fingers. Nothing changes how much I love you guys. After the boys were asleep, their night light casting a gentle glow under their bedroom door, Ethan found himself in his office, staring at his laptop. The security footage from the gala was there, blurred but clear enough to prove context. The timestamp matched exactly with the audio clip Vivian had leaked. Release it, and the public narrative would shift. Keep it private, and the boy's vulnerable moment stayed protected. The cursor hovered over the file, his finger resting on the mouse button. He thought of James, of promises made on a mountain's edge, of two small boys who'd already lost one home. The memory of his brother's voice was so clear. If anything happens to me, protect them from the spotlight. Your face says you're overthinking. Mrs. Dotty appeared with tea, the herbal scent wafting from two matching mugs. Her blazer was gone, replaced by her comfortable cardigan. The answer isn't in that computer. She placed one mug beside his hand, the warmth radiating through the ceramic. No? Ethan looked up, the screen's blue light reflected in his tired eyes. No, it's in those sleep logs Mara keeps, in the homework charts and the library cards and the neighbours who see you at the park every weekend. In the truth, not the spin. She took a sip, leaving a faint lipstick mark on the rim. Truth outlasts tricks, my mother used to say. Ethan closed the laptop. The soft click sounded like a decision. He set an alarm for 5:30 a.m. on his phone and, for the first time since the accident, slept through till it rang, the house quiet except for the gentle breathing of those who called it home. The oatmeal steamed in 3 bowls, dotted with fresh strawberries that Ethan had carefully sliced into heart shapes. It was 6:30 a.m., and the kitchen smelled of cinnamon and worry. Remember what we talked about? Mara asked, sitting between Mateo and Micah at the breakfast counter. Today is about telling the truth simply. The twins chorused, spooning up their breakfast. Ethan watched from the coffee maker, his tie slightly crooked. His hands hadn't been steady enough to knot it properly. That's right, Mara continued. Just like our brave breaths, simple and true. Mrs. Dotty arrived as they were finishing, wearing her best navy suit. She adjusted Ethan's tie without comment, then helped the boys wash their sticky fingers. The morning routine felt both normal and strange. Backpacks checked, shoes tied, teeth brushed. At 8:15 a.m., they pulled up to the school entrance. I'll be here at pickup time, Mara promised, kneeling to hug each boy. No matter what happens. Mateo's lower lip trembled. Cross your heart? Cross my heart? Mara drew an X over her chest. 3 o'clock sharp. The courthouse loomed at 9:30 a.m., all marble and echoing footsteps. Ethan's lawyer met them at security, briefcase bulging with documentation. They'd just reached the second floor when camera flashes erupted. Vivian Cross stepped out of the elevator, perfectly composed in cream silk. 2 photographers trailed her, and a small video crew hung back by the stairs. Quite the circus, Mrs. Dotty muttered. The judge's chambers felt smaller than expected. Book-lined walls, a heavy desk, and just enough chairs for the principals. At 10 a.m. sharp, Judge Marina Chen entered, her reading glasses perched low on her nose. Mrs. Dotty testified first, her voice steady and clear. "I knew James Hale for 3 years at the VA clinic. He spoke often about his sons and about his brother Ethan. When James—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When we lost James, Ethan stepped in without hesitation. The boys were his priority from day one." She described the grief counseling, the routine building, the quiet ways Ethan had transformed his life to create stability. He turned the penthouse playroom into a therapy space, learned to cook their favorite meals, started leaving work at 5 sharp for family dinner. Ethan's lawyer presented the evidence next. Sleep logs showing improved rest patterns, homework charts tracking steady progress, and 15 notarized statements from neighbors, teachers, and building staff. "Your Honor," Vivian's lawyer interrupted, "these domestic details don't address the moral fitness concerns or the questionable hiring practices." Ethan made his decision in that moment. He nodded to his lawyer, who pulled out a USB drive. "This is the complete security footage from the gala incident," the lawyer explained. "Faces blurred, sensitive images redacted, but full audio context preserved. We request it be reviewed under seal." The judge's chambers fell silent, except for the soft whir of her computer. Everyone watched her face as she viewed the footage. The panic, Mara's protective instinct, Ethan's awkward but well-meant warning. At noon, they broke for recess. The hallway had filled with more press. Someone shouted something crude about Mara's employment terms. She kept walking, one hand pressed to her pocket where she carried the twins' card, construction paper covered in wobbly stars and lyrics to their made-up, brave song. Back in chambers at 2 p.m., Judge Chen removed her glasses. "I've reviewed all evidence thoroughly. Mr. Hale's guardianship will remain in place, with a full review hearing in 6 weeks." She looked directly at Vivian. "This court values stability and truth over spectacle, Ms. Cross. I suggest you remember that." The relief in the room was palpable. Mrs. Dotty squeezed Ethan's shoulder. By 3 p.m., Mara stood at the school gates as promised. The twins burst out running. "Did you stay brave?" she asked, hugging them close. "We counted. Blew things all day," Micah announced, "and did our breathing." Back at the penthouse, they pulled out baking supplies. Star-shaped cookie cutters turned simple sugar dough into a celebration. The day's tension finally began to fade as warm cookie smells filled the kitchen. Ethan arrived home to find flour-dusted counters and happy chatter. Later, after Mrs. Dotty had gone home and the twins were asleep, Ethan found Mara on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below, and a cool evening breeze carried away the last echoes of courthouse stress. "Thank you," he said simply. "Not just for today, for seeing what the boys needed, for helping me see it too." Mara smiled, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "They're amazing kids. They just needed steady ground to stand on." "We all did," Ethan admitted quietly. "Your counsel, it matters, more than I expected." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city settle into night. By midnight, the gossip had cooled to embers, but one ember hid in ash. Wednesday morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows and casting golden patterns across the polished floors. Mara arrived at the penthouse to find Mrs. Dotty at the kitchen counter, her silver-streaked hair tucked behind her ears as she meticulously organized a stack of grocery store gift cards and bus passes, arranging them with thoughtful precision. "For our dinner guests," Mrs. Dotty explained with a warm wink that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Sometimes pride needs a gentle bridge, and this way they can leave with dignity intact. No one wants to feel like charity, but everyone appreciates community." The dining room table, usually set for 4 with its crisp white tablecloth, had been extended to its full length and now stretched majestically to accommodate 8 place settings. Crystal glasses caught the morning light, and fresh flowers added splashes of color to the elegant arrangement. Mara guided the twins as they crafted personalized place cards, their small fingers pressing colorful stickers onto folded cardstock, while their tongues poked out in concentration as they carefully printed each name. "Can I sit next to Mr. Rodriguez?" Mateo asked, his eyes bright with anticipation as he mentioned the veteran who lived on the 3rd floor. "He promised to teach me chess. He says I might be good at it because I think about things a lot." "Of course." Mara smiled, gently ruffling his dark hair. "And Micah, would you like to sit by Ms. Chen? She's bringing her famous spring rolls that you liked so much last time. She told me she's making extra just for you." The afternoon homework hour transformed seamlessly into a warm community gathering. Mr. Rodriguez arrived first, his weathered hands carefully cradling a wooden chess set tucked under one arm, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the twins. Sarah Chen, her scrubs exchanged for a casual blouse after finishing her night shift as a nurse on the 4th floor, brought her promised spring rolls, the aroma of ginger and herbs still wafting from the container. Mr. Watson, a grandfather with kind eyes who'd lost his wife last year, carried a worn leather photo album that the twins had been eagerly asking to see for weeks. Ethan moved among his guests with growing ease, his usually guarded shoulders relaxing with each passing minute. The stiffness in his posture gradually melted away as the evening progressed, his usual reserve softening into genuine warmth. He listened intently as Mr. Rodriguez described teaching chess to his own children years ago, nodding with understanding. When Sarah mentioned her long, sometimes frightening walks to the bus stop after night shifts, Ethan made a discreet note in his phone that Mrs. Dotty immediately recognized as transportation taken care of, his quiet way of solving problems without fanfare. The Truth and Kindness board that Mara had mounted in the kitchen caught everyone's attention with its colorful markers and inspirational quotes. She had been filling it with simple acts and alternatives. "When people say mean things online, we write thank you notes to help us instead. When we hear a rumor, we plant a flower. When we feel scared, we help someone else. Look what we made." Micah proudly held up their latest project, showing off carefully written cards decorated with hand-drawn brooms and mops for the school custodians. "Because they make our classroom shine and fix everything. Mr. Henderson always smiles at us even when kids are messy." After the meal of shared dishes and laughter-filled conversation, Mrs. Dotty quietly distributed the gift cards and bus passes, presenting them as community resources rather than charity. "Just a little something from our building association," she said casually, though no such formal association existed. The gentle dignity of the gesture brought tears to Mr. Watson's eyes as he clutched the envelope. "This building," he said softly, his voice catching. "It's become more than walls. It's the first place that's felt like home since Margaret passed." Thursday morning sparkled with spring promise, the air fresh with possibility. Mara met the twins at the school entrance, their colorful backpacks bouncing against their small frames as they ran to her, matching grins lighting up their faces. "Park Day!" they chorused in perfect unison, grabbing her hands and swinging them excitedly. The neighborhood playground quickly filled with after-school energy, shrieks of laughter, and the squeak of swing sets creating a symphony of childhood joy. Mateo and Micah were racing down the slide for the 10th time, their cheeks flushed with excitement, when a crying sound caught their attention. A toddler with curly hair and tear-streaked cheeks had wandered away from his mother, who was frantically searching nearby, panic etched across her face. The twins froze momentarily, then looked to Mara, who nodded encouragingly from her bench. "Remember what we practiced?" she called softly. "Words first, then find a grown-up. You can do this." Mateo approached the little boy carefully, bending down to his level instead of towering over him. "Hi, are you lost? I'm Mateo. We can help you find your mum. Don't worry, okay?" His voice was gentle, just as they'd practiced during their safety drills. Meanwhile, Micah had already spotted the searching mother and waved both arms to get her attention, pointing toward her child without leaving his brother's side. The reunion was swift and tearful, the mother gathering her son into trembling arms while repeatedly thanking the twins. "You were so brave and kind." Mara praised them afterward, her heart swelling with pride as they walked home. "You knew exactly what to do, and you helped someone who was scared. That's what real heroes do." That evening, Ethan arrived home early, his tie already loosened and his briefcase absent. He carried a brown paper bag that clinked with promise as he set it on the counter, a hesitant smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I thought maybe—" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair before continuing. "Maybe we could watch that cartoon the boys have been talking about, the one with the space explorers. I brought hot cocoa mix, the fancy kind with the little chocolate shavings." Mara's smile lit up her eyes, creating tiny crinkles that softened her whole face. "I'll heat the milk. The boys will be thrilled. They've been hoping you'd watch it with them." The twins bounced with excitement when they heard the plan, chattering non-stop as they helped arrange pillows and blankets in the TV room, creating a cozy nest. Ethan carefully measured chocolate powder into 4 mugs, while Mara warmed milk on the stove, stirring it slowly to prevent scorching. The familiar, comforting scent of cocoa filled the kitchen, wrapping them all in its embrace. Mrs. Dotty appeared in the doorway, as if summoned by the domestic scene, carrying a container of homemade marshmallows dusted with powdered sugar. "Can't have cocoa without these," she declared with authority. "My grandmother's recipe, a secret ingredient that makes everything better." 4 mugs assembled on one tray, 2 small ones with extra marshmallows bobbing on the surface, 2 larger ones steaming gently side by side. The sight stirred something deep in Mara's heart. Not romance, but a deeper, more profound peace. Family, chosen and cherished, coming together not from obligation, but genuine care. The cartoon played on the large screen, filling the room with vibrant color and infectious laughter. Mateo and Micah snuggled contentedly between Ethan and Mara, their small hands wrapped around warm mugs, occasionally giggling at the animated antics. Steam rose from each cup like a quiet blessing over this moment of perfect contentment, this island of peace they had created together. Just before dawn on Friday, a courier knocked again at the penthouse door. The harsh buzz of Ethan's phone shattered the dawn silence at 6:20 Friday morning. Mrs. Dotty's text was brief but urgent. "Turn on your TV, now." The headline scrolling across the morning news made his stomach drop. "Exclusive. Secret contract reveals truth behind tech billionaire's nanny arrangement." A PDF floated on screen, a crude mockery of the simple childcare agreement they'd written. But this version twisted everything pure into something dark. False clauses about exclusive nighttime availability and personal companionship had been inserted. Both their signatures looked wrong, clearly forged. Ethan's hands shook as he dialed his lawyer. Before he could finish explaining, his phone buzzed again. The story was trending. At 8 o'clock sharp, Vivian's PR firm released their statement. "While we regret commenting on ongoing personal matters, questions of professional boundaries and child welfare cannot be ignored. As advocates for family stability—" Ethan didn't finish reading. He knew her game now. Death by 1,000 cuts. His phone rang again. The school principal, speaking in careful tones about media presence and student privacy. Would he please pick up the twins early? Several news vans had already parked across the street. Mara arrived at 8:30, her face pale but composed. She'd taken the service entrance to avoid cameras, but her phone hadn't stopped vibrating since sunrise. I saw it," she said simply. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped her bag too tightly. "My mum called crying. She asked if I'd really—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "We'll fight this," Ethan promised. "I'll release a statement, hire investigators—" "The boys," Mara cut in softly. "What did they say when you picked them up early?" Micah asked if the camera people were mad at us again. Matteo just held my hand really tight. Tears filled Mara's eyes, but she blinked them back. That's what I was afraid of. They worked through the afternoon in heavy silence. Mara helped the twins with homework, while Ethan paced, fielding calls. Mrs. Dotty brought supplies for grilled cheese and tomato soup, comfort food for hard days. At the dinner table, Micah dunked his sandwich triangle carefully in the soup. "Are you sad, Miss Mara?" "A little," she admitted. "Sometimes people say untrue things that hurt our feelings." "Like on the board?" Matteo pointed to their truth and kindness display. "We're supposed to do good things instead of mean ones." "That's right." Mara's voice wavered slightly. "You two are so smart about that." After dinner, while the twins worked on a puzzle with Mrs. Dotty, Mara sat at the kitchen counter and began to write. The words came slowly, each one weighted with care. "Dear Ethan, I am grateful for the trust you placed in me and the joy of knowing your sons. They have taught me more about bravery and truth than any classroom could. But I cannot let their peace be disturbed because of me. They deserve to play at parks and go to school without cameras following. I will not be the reason their world shrinks again. Please know this choice comes from love, for them, and for the quiet dignity you've shown in protecting their childhood. I've accepted a night shift position at the free clinic starting tomorrow. With respect and gratitude, Mara." She folded the paper carefully, her hands steady despite her heart's trembling. The twins found her as she was gathering her things. "We made this for you," Matteo said, holding out their Brave Song card, the one they'd created during that first scary week. "For when you help scared kids at the doctor place. Like you helped us," Micah added. Mara knelt and hugged them both close, breathing in the scent of tomato soup and childhood. "You two are the bravest people I know," she whispered. Mrs. Dotty appeared with Ethan, who looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. He simply nodded, respecting her choice even as it pained him. The card went into her tote bag, along with a small container of leftover soup Mrs. Dotty pressed into her hands. The walk to the elevator felt endless. At 9:55 p.m., the elevator doors closed on the quietest ride she'd ever taken. Saturday morning arrived with a heaviness Mara hadn't expected. Her small apartment felt too quiet after weeks of children's laughter. She spent the early hours organizing her scrubs and packing a lunch for her first night shift, trying not to check her phone. Across town, Ethan stood in his kitchen at 6:30, determinedly mixing pancake batter. He'd found the recipe card Mara had left in the drawer. "Weekend Brave Breakfast," written in her neat handwriting at the top. "Can we make faces on them?" Matteo asked, peering over the counter. "Like Miss Mara does," Micah added hopefully. Ethan's hand tightened on the whisk. "We can try," he said, forcing brightness into his voice. "How about chocolate chips for eyes?" The morning stretched into carefully planned activities. Library story time at 10, the boys clutching their new cards that Mara had helped them get just days ago. Building pool at noon, where Mrs. Dotty appeared with swim noodles and a watchful eye. Every hour felt like exercise in distraction. At 7 p.m., Mara walked through the clinic's automatic doors, trading sunshine for fluorescent lights. The charge nurse, Rita, gave her a quick orientation. "Mostly minor stuff on weekends. Cuts, sprains, worried parents. You've got good instincts with kids, I hear." Mara nodded, thinking of two particular boys and their brave breaths. The night unfolded in a parade of small hurts and worried faces. A teenager with a skateboarding scrape, a grandmother with high blood pressure, a little girl crying over an earache. With each one, Mara found herself using the gentle voice she'd developed with the twins. "Let's count 3 things you can see," she told the girl with the earache. 1, 2, 3. Now take a big, brave breath with me. Back at the penthouse, Ethan faced the dreaded bedtime routine. The twins were extra fidgety, missing their normal rhythm. "Can you do the brave breath like Miss Mara?" Micah asked, clutching his stuffed penguin. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "In for 4, out for 4, right?" His count was a bit awkward, but the boys followed along anyway. "It's not the same," Matteo whispered after, but he patted Ethan's hand. "You tried good, though, Uncle Ethan." Sunday dawned grey and restless. Mara finally fell asleep at 8 a.m. after her shift, only to be woken at noon by her mother calling. "Mihia, have you seen? That awful woman's company is still spreading lies." Indeed, Vivian's PR firm had released another concerned statement about ongoing questions of professional conduct. The original tabloid story gained fresh traction. Ethan's lawyer worked through Sunday, drafting cease and desist letters and demanding the tabloid's metadata about the forged contract. "We'll trace the document's origin," she promised Ethan. "Digital fingerprints don't lie." In the building's security office, Mrs. Dotty sat with a thermos of coffee, methodically reviewing camera footage from the past week. Her military training showed in her precise notes. Thursday, 05:20 hours, courier in non-standard uniform, badge number obscured, exit route irregular. The twins spent Sunday afternoon making get-well cards for Mara's future patients. "Because helping people makes you tired," Matteo explained, carefully drawing a rainbow. "And rainbows make everything better," Micah added, sharing the red crayon. Ethan watched them work, his heart aching at their simple kindness. He'd protected them from seeing the new headlines, but they carried the weight of absence anyway. At 7 p.m., Mara started her second clinic shift. A busy night of minor emergencies kept her moving, wrapping sprains, checking fevers, offering calm words to frightened parents. Each small act of care felt like a step toward something healing, even as her own hurt lingered. By 10 p.m., she was taking her first real break. The night air felt cool as she stepped out the clinic's side door, unwrapping a sandwich that didn't taste like much. Her walk took her past the Armitage Hotel, its golden lights the same as that fateful Friday night that now felt so long ago. She paused, looking up at the elegant facade. Just a hotel now, not the place where everything changed. A simple prayer rose to her lips. Keep them safe, keep them brave, help them sleep in peace. The words floated up into the night sky, carrying all the love she couldn't give in person anymore. Monday morning sparkled with deceptive brightness, the kind of clear sky that made Saturday's troubles feel distant. Ethan watched the twins skip ahead of him on the way to school, their backpacks bouncing with each step. "Remember show and tell today," Micah called over his shoulder, clutching his favorite robot toy. "And music class," Matteo added, humming what might have been Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The school day passed quietly. No reporters lingered at the gates anymore, their attention already drawn to fresher scandals. By early afternoon, though, the weather began to shift. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, bringing with them a sharp drop in temperature. At 4:30, phones across the city buzzed with the alert. "Severe windstorm warning, gusts up to 60 miles per hour expected. Seek shelter." Ethan didn't hesitate. He left a meeting mid-sentence and headed straight for the school, arriving just as the first heavy drops began to fall. The twins were already waiting in the office, watching leaves skitter past the windows. "Uncle Ethan!" they chorused, running to him. "The wind sounds scary." "We'll be home before it gets bad," he promised, hurrying them to the car. By 5:20, they'd made it back to their building, which had already switched to generator power as a precaution. The lobby lights hummed with that particular generator glow, slightly dimmer, slightly warmer than usual. "I need to park the car in the underground garage," Ethan told Mrs. Chen from the 12th floor, who stood waiting for the elevator with her 3-year-old granddaughter, Emily. "Would you mind if the boys rode up with you?" "Of course not." Mrs. Chen smiled. "We'll keep each other company, won't we?" The twins knew Mrs. Chen from their weekly building dinners. They waved to Ethan as the elevator doors closed at 5:58, Emily clutching her worn stuffed giraffe between them. At 6:05, everything changed. The elevator jerked to a sudden stop between the 7th and 8th floors. The main lights flickered once, twice, then died, leaving only the dim emergency strips along the floor. Outside, the wind howled against the building's steel bones. Matteo grabbed his brother's hand. "No, no, no," he whispered, his breathing getting faster. "Like at the hotel." Micah pressed against the wall, eyes squeezed shut. The memory of the gala's panic rose fresh in their minds. The crowd, the darkness, the feeling of being lost. Mrs. Chen tried to calm them, but Emily had started crying too, and the small space felt even smaller with their rising fear. She pressed the emergency call button. Down in the lobby, Ethan burst through the doors just as security was registering the elevator problem. His phone rang. "Mrs. Dotty." "They're stuck," she said without preamble. "The boys are starting to panic. We need their routine. We need Mara." Ethan's throat tightened. "But she's not. I'm calling her now." Mrs. Dotty cut in. "She knows how to talk them down." At 6:13, Mara's phone lit up. She was 3 blocks from the clinic, already in her scrubs, fighting with an umbrella that had turned inside out in the wind. "The twins are stuck in the elevator," Mrs. Dotty explained quickly. "They're frightened. Nobody else knows their brave breath routine like you do." Mara didn't hesitate. "I'm coming. Put me on speaker to them now." She turned and ran back toward the building, rain soaking through her scrubs. Mrs. Dotty's spare key kit and emergency flashlight were in the security office. She'd need those to help maintenance access the elevator shaft safely. The wind tried to push her back, but Mara leaned into it, 1 block, then 2, then 3. Her shoes squelched with every step, but she didn't slow down. At 6:19, she rounded the final corner. The building's generator-lit lobby glowed ahead like a lighthouse. She pressed her phone closer to her ear and called out clear and strong, the way she always did during thunderstorms and bad dreams. "Matteo, Micah, can you hear me?" Her voice carried through the security system's speaker into the dark elevator, steady as a heartbeat, bringing with it the first breath of calm. Through the elevator's intercom, Mara's voice remained steady and clear. "Let's do our brave breath together. Remember, in for 4, out for 4. "Mara?" Matteo's voice quivered in the darkness. "I'm here, sweetheart. Everyone breathe with me now. In 1, 2, 3, 4. The sound of 4 sets of breathing filled the small space as Mrs. Chen, Emily, and the twins followed Mara's count. "Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's perfect." Thunder crashed outside, making Emily whimper. Micah reached for her hand in the dim emergency lighting. "Now, let's play our game." Mara continued. "Can you find 3 blue things in the elevator? Use your flashlight from Mrs. Chen's phone." "The buttons are blue," Matteo said after a moment. "Emily's hair clip is blue." Micah added, his voice steadier now. And the emergency light is kind of blue." Matteo finished. "Wonderful job. Now shall we sing our brave song very softly, like a lullaby?" At 6:26, Ethan burst through the stairwell door onto the 7th floor, his hair damp from running up the stairs. Through the elevator doors, he could hear the gentle melody of their voices. Brave like lions, strong like trees, standing tall through storm and breeze. "I'm right here," he called through the intercom. "I'm right here, boys. Uncle Ethan," they called back in unison. Mrs. Dotty arrived moments later, her old medic bag slung over her shoulder. She immediately began conferring with Marco, the building engineer, about the stuck sensor. "The backup generator should have prevented this," Marco muttered, checking his tablet. "But something's interfering with the signal." Down the hall, Sarah from apartment 712 had her phone out, quietly live streaming. She kept the camera focused on the helpers, maintenance workers with flashlights, neighbors bringing bottles of water, Mrs. Dotty's efficient movements as she laid out supplies, just in case. Little Amy from the 4th floor toddled up to Mara, holding out a sparkly star sticker. "For Brave," she said solemnly. Mara pressed it to her scrub top. "Thank you, sweetie. Want to help me sing to our friends in the elevator?" Together, they started another round of the Brave song. More voices joined in from the gathering neighbors, creating a gentle chorus that echoed through the dark hallway. Marco worked steadily at the control panel, while Mrs. Dotty held a flashlight for him. "Almost there," he said at 6:45. "The manual override should work now." "How are you doing, Mrs. Chen?" Mara called through the intercom. "We're okay," came the calm reply. "Emily's fallen asleep on my lap, and the boys are teaching me hand games." At 6:58, there was a mechanical whir, and the elevator doors slowly opened. Paramedics who had been waiting stepped forward with their equipment, but their services weren't urgently needed. The twins burst out first, running straight to Ethan, who knelt with open arms. They crashed into him, then spun around and ran to Mara, wrapping their arms around her waist. Her scrubs were still damp from the rain, but they didn't care. Finally, they ran back to Ethan, completing their circle of safety. Mrs. Chen emerged with a sleeping Emily, accepting a quick check from the paramedics, while neighbors offered blankets and water. Sarah's live stream captured it all. Not the faces, but the moments. Flashlight beams dancing as people passed bottles of water down the line, Mara's star sticker glinting as she helped Mrs. Chen step out, the twins' twin shadows as they ran between their protectors, the sound of relief in Marco's voice as he announced the all clear. Later, the video would spread across social media with the caption, "Kindness in a blackout," quietly drowning out the tabloid noise with its simple truth. Community matters more than scandal. Through the windows, lightning still flickered, but inside, everything felt steady. The Brave song had done its work. By 8:10 p.m., power steadied and the city exhaled. Tuesday morning dawned with the familiar weight of uncertainty, but by afternoon, pieces began falling into place like dominoes. Marcus Chen, Ethan's lead counsel, sat at his desk reviewing upload metadata from the tabloid's server logs. His fingers tapped a steady rhythm on his keyboard as he traced the digital breadcrumbs. "Got it," he muttered, reaching for his phone. "Mr. Hale, the contract upload came from an IP address registered to Apex Digital Solutions." Ethan's voice was tight. "And Apex is a shell company that regularly contracts with Cross Communications. We have their billing records." Across town, Mrs. Dotty stood in the security office of her building, reviewing footage with Tom, the night doorman. Frame by frame, they watched a courier in a Navy uniform drop off the envelope last Thursday night. "Wait," Mrs. Dotty said, pointing. "Freeze it there." The courier's sleeve had ridden up, revealing a distinctive tattoo, a compass rose. Tom nodded grimly. "That's Jake Murphy. He moonlights for Elite. Messenger service. They're exclusive to Cross Communications." Mrs. Dotty finished. She took a photo of the screen with her phone and sent it to Ethan. By Tuesday evening, the evidence was overwhelming. Vivian had orchestrated the entire smear campaign, from the leaked audio to the forged contract. Wednesday morning, Ethan sat in his home office, reviewing the file Marcus had prepared. The twins were at school, their routine maintained despite the storm still brewing in the adult world. At 1:45 p.m., he straightened his tie and headed downtown. The Cross Communications building rose like a wall of mirrors against the sky, reflecting clouds that seemed to match Ethan's mood. Dark but clearing. The conference room on the 32nd floor was all glass and chrome, offering a panoramic view of the city. Vivian was already there when Ethan arrived, perfectly composed in a charcoal suit, her red hair swept into a smooth chignon. "Ethan," she said, rising. "I assumed this was about withdrawing my challenge. Sit down, Vivian." She paused, studying his face, then slowly returned to her chair. Ethan placed a leather folder on the table between them. "Do you know what destroyed my brother?" The question caught her off guard. What? Not the climbing accident. Before that. What broke him down was the constant pressure to perform for the cameras, to be the perfect public figure instead of just being himself. Ethan opened the folder. "You knew that. You were there." "That's not fair," Vivian said, but her voice wavered slightly. "What's not fair is this." He laid out the evidence one piece at a time. Server logs from your shell company, security footage of your courier, metadata from the forged contract, bank records showing payments to the tabloid editor. Color drained from Vivian's face as she looked at the documents. "You didn't just leak a story," Ethan continued. "You manufactured evidence. You tried to destroy an innocent woman's reputation. You used my nephews as pawns." "I just meant to shake things loose," Vivian burst out. "To make you see you needed proper image management. Access to the trust would have let me protect everyone's interests." "The boys' interests?" Ethan's voice was quiet but sharp. "Or yours?" Tears welled in Vivian's eyes, but her pride held them back. "What do you want?" "You have two choices." Ethan leaned forward. "Option 1. I file a lawsuit for defamation, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. My lawyers contact the PR Ethics Board with evidence of false documentation and malicious publication. Your firm faces investigation. Your reputation takes a hit that could last years." Vivian's knuckles whitened around her pen. "Option 2, Ethan continued. "You issue a full retraction and public apology, specifically naming Mara and acknowledging the contract was forged. You withdraw all guardianship challenges permanently, and you make a donation to the free clinic in Claire's name." At the mention of the twins' mother, Vivian flinched. Claire believed in mercy. Ethan said softly, "So do I, but mercy with accountability." Silence filled the glass room. Below, traffic flowed like a river, unaware of the moment of truth unfolding above. Finally, Vivian spoke, her voice rough. "The apology goes live tomorrow at 6 a.m. The guardianship challenge will be withdrawn by noon. The donation—" She swallowed hard. What amount would honor Claire's memory? "You know what the clinic needs. Make it meaningful." She nodded once, sharp and quick. "Will that be all?" "One more thing." Ethan stood. "The next time you want to protect someone, try doing it with truth instead of tactics. It's harder, but it lasts longer." He left her there, surrounded by evidence of her schemes, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the glass walls. By sunset, Vivian's communication team had crafted the statement, scheduled for 6 a.m. release. It sat in the queue, its cursor blinking like a heartbeat, waiting to restore truth to a story that had spun so far from it. By sunset, her statement was scheduled. By sunrise, it was live. Thursday dawned clear and cool, a perfect spring morning. At exactly 9 o'clock, Vivian's statement appeared across multiple platforms, its carefully crafted words spreading rapidly across screens throughout the city. "I, Vivian Cross, Wish to publicly acknowledge and apologize for my role in the recent controversy surrounding Ethan Hale and Mara Benitez. The alleged contract published in various outlets was fabricated by a contractor working under my firm's direction. Ms. Benitez is an exemplary caregiver whose only fault was protecting children during a crisis. I accept full responsibility for the damage this has caused. At the free clinic, Mara was finishing her night shift when her supervisor, Dr. Chen, burst into the break room waving his phone. "Look at this." He quickly printed the statement and taped it to the refrigerator, using alphabet magnets to spell out "Truth Wins" above it. Mara stood quietly, reading the words that cleared her name. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached the part about a substantial donation being made to both the clinic and the Pediatric Therapy Fund from the gala. Throughout the morning, the story shifted. News channels that had breathlessly reported the scandal now played clips of the elevator rescue, focusing on the community response. Social media filled with images of kindness boards, inspired by Mara's original creation, spreading from school to school. At 10:30, an email arrived from Ms. Patterson, the twins' school counselor. "Dear Mr. Hale and Ms. Benitez, your dedication to protecting Mateo and Micah's privacy while maintaining their routine has been exemplary. The boys have shown remarkable resilience." Ethan read the email twice in his home office, then looked at the empty space where Mara's coat usually hung. The penthouse felt hollow without. Her steady presence, the twins' artwork taped carefully at their eye level, her gentle humming as she prepared their after-school snacks. He spent an hour drafting a new position description, carefully outlining every detail. No more room for misinterpretation or manipulation. At 2:00, he called Mrs. Doty to review it. "Household Family Coordinator," she read aloud. "Good title. Clear authority, proper hours, excellent benefits." She looked up at him. "You're doing right by her this time. Do you think she'll accept?" Mrs. Doty smiled. "That depends on how you ask." At 3:15, just as Mara was preparing to head home from the clinic, her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Could you stop by at 4? The boys have something they want to show you." When Mara arrived, the penthouse smelled of crayons and hot chocolate. The twins sat at their craft table, tongues stuck out in concentration as they worked on what appeared to be a very important document. "Hi, Mara," they chorused, but didn't look up from their task. Ethan emerged from the kitchen carrying 4 mugs of hot chocolate, each topped with a careful swirl of whipped cream. "Thank you for coming," he said, setting the tray down. "I wanted to talk about your position here." Mara's spine straightened slightly. "Yes?" He handed her a folder. "This is a proper offer. Full-time household family coordinator. You'd oversee the boys' routines, coordinate their tutoring, work with the school, and help plan community dinners. Clear hours, full benefits, and complete authority in your domain." He paused. "No press obligations, ever." Mara opened the folder, scanning the detailed description. Everything was laid out professionally, from salary to scheduling to scope of responsibility. This wasn't a hasty patch-up. This was a real role. "Done," Micah announced, holding up the paper he and his brother had been working on. It was a hand-drawn job offer card, covered in wobbly stars and what might have been hot chocolate cups, or possibly very round birds. In careful first-grade printing, it read, "Dear Mara, please come back. We promise to love Mateo and Micah." Mara's eyes misted as she looked at their earnest faces. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "But I need you both to be very sure. You get to choose too." "We choose you," Mateo said simply. "I'd like 24 hours," Mara said, looking at Ethan. "To make sure this is right for everyone." He nodded. "Of course." The twins carefully folded their card and tucked it into the folder with the official offer. As Mara left, They waved from the window, leaving tiny handprints on the glass. That evening, after the boys were in bed, Ethan sat at his desk looking at their artwork. They'd drawn more stars on the back of their card, with little doodles of what looked like cookie cutters and steaming mugs. Tomorrow would tell if their family could be whole again. Friday at noon, Mara walked back into the penthouse carrying a bag of star-shaped cookie cutters. Friday noon brought more than just cookie cutters to the penthouse. Mara arrived with a leather portfolio containing neatly printed schedules and colorful activity plans. Her professional demeanor was warmed by the genuine smile that lit up her face when the twins rushed to greet her. "Welcome back," Ethan said, standing slightly apart to give the boys their moment. Mara knelt down to the twins' level, accepting their enthusiastic hugs while maintaining her new role's boundaries. "I have some exciting plans for us," she told them, pulling out a laminated weekly calendar decorated with stickers. "Tuesday afternoons will be homework club," she explained, pointing to the schedule. "We'll invite some of your friends from school. Thursday afternoons we're starting a special craft hour led by veterans like Mrs. Dotty, and every other Friday—" She paused for effect. "We'll have cocoa night." The twins' eyes widened at this structured return to comfort. Matteo pointed to a blank space. "What about Mondays?" "Those are for whatever special projects come up." Mara answered, "Like today's project." They looked at her expectantly. "I heard you made something very special that needs hanging?" Micah gasped and ran to his room, returning with a carefully wrapped frame. Inside was their Brave song, decorated with hand-drawn stars and musical notes. Together, they chose the perfect spot in the hallway, where anyone entering would see it. "This is our home's heart song now," Mara said as Ethan hung it carefully. Saturday morning dawned bright and purposeful, the community room filled with neighbors sorting supplies for care packages. Mara had coordinated with her clinic colleagues to identify the most needed items: warm socks, travel-sized toiletries, granola bars, and hand warmers. The twins sat at a table with Mrs. Dotty, who was teaching them to tie simple knots to secure the packages. "You know," she said, demonstrating a basic square knot, "when I was a medic in the field hospital, we used knots like these to hang privacy curtains." "Did you help lots of people?" Micah asked, tongue sticking out as he concentrated on his knot. Mrs. Dotty smiled. "We sure did. Once we even had to tie knots to keep our tent from flying away in a sandstorm. The whole thing was dancing like a kite." The boys giggled at her animated storytelling, while her experienced hands guided theirs through the motions. Each successfully tied package earned a star sticker on their charts. Ethan watched from the doorway, noting how naturally Mara integrated into the group, directing traffic and ensuring everyone felt valued. She'd created a system where the older residents could sit while working, and the children could move freely between helping stations. Sunday brought a different kind of peace. The morning church service was blessedly ordinary. No whispers, no sideways glances, just worship and community. The twins sat between Ethan and Mara, drawing quietly in their prayer journals during the sermon. Afterward, they spread blankets in the park for a picnic. The spring air carried the scent of blooming cherry trees, and distant laughter from the playground provided a gentle soundtrack. Mara had packed simple sandwiches, cut into stars using her new cookie cutters. While the boys played nearby under Mrs. Dotty's watchful eye, Ethan closed his eyes briefly, offering silent thanks for this moment of normal family life. No cameras, no controversy, just the sun on his face and his son's happy voices. As evening approached and the twins were settling into their bedtime routine, Ethan asked Mara to stay for a moment in his home office. "I wanted to tell you about something I've set up," he began, pulling out a folder. "It's an anonymous scholarship fund in the twins' mother's name. I'd like you to use it for your nursing school expenses." Mara's expression shifted carefully. That's very generous, but it's not charity, Ethan said quickly. You've earned this through your work with our family. She considered for a moment. I'll accept on one condition, she said finally. Make it a household education fund that future caregivers can access too. That way, it's about building something lasting, not just helping me. Ethan nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her compromise. I'll have the lawyers redraft it tomorrow. Thank you, Mara said simply, for understanding that dignity matters as much as dollars. They shared a moment of quiet understanding before Mara gathered her things to leave. At the elevator, the twins' voices drifted down the hallway, singing their brave song as they got ready for bed. Monday's sky was clear, and so were the boys' dreams. Monday morning brought the kind of math homework that made even the bravest hearts quiver. Micah stared at his multiplication worksheet, his pencil tapping an anxious rhythm on the kitchen table. I can't do it, he declared, lower lip trembling. The numbers keep jumping around. Matteo, usually quick with numbers, was equally frustrated. His eraser had nearly worn through the paper. Mara recognized the signs of an impending meltdown. Let's take a snack break, she suggested, already reaching for apples and peanut butter. Sometimes our brains need fuel to think clearly. She sliced the apples into thin wheels while the boys watched, their faces still pinched with worry. Did you know that when I'm studying really hard, I need to move around sometimes? The twins perked up at this revelation. After their snack, Mara led them to the terrace, where the spring air carried the scent of newly planted flowers in Mrs. Dottie's container garden. Let's count by twos while we walk, she suggested. They made slow circles around the terrace, numbers flowing easier with movement. When they returned to their homework, the problems seemed less daunting. Tuesday's homework dinner brought new faces to the long table. Mrs. Chen from the 10th floor brought her grandson, Tommy, who was struggling with reading. Mr. Rodriguez, a retired high school teacher from 2 floors down, offered to help. Ethan noticed Tommy's mother checking her watch repeatedly, worried about getting to her night shift on time. During a quiet moment, he slipped Mrs. Dottie a note authorizing weekly tutoring sessions for Tommy. Sometimes help needs to be invisible to be accepted, he murmured when Mara caught his eye. She nodded, understanding the delicate balance between assistance and dignity. Wednesday afternoon found the twins in their bi-weekly therapy session, playing with kinetic sand while discussing their feelings. Dr. Sarah, their child psychologist, smiled as they built elaborate sand castles. And how have you been sleeping? She asked gently. Better, Matteo said, carefully adding a tower. The elevator was scary, but Mara knew our brave song, and Daddy was there too. Yeah, Micah chimed in. And now we know lots of people in our building who help us be brave. Dr. Sarah made notes about their improved sleep patterns and growing sense of community support. The nightmares that had plagued them since losing their father were finally easing. Thursday morning dawned with promise. Mara arrived early at the community college for her nursing program orientation, her acceptance letter carefully folded in her bag. The classroom smelled of fresh coffee and new beginnings. As she took notes about prerequisites and clinical rotations, she thought about how her path had twisted and turned to bring her here. The scholarship fund, now restructured as a household education initiative, had made this possible. That evening, she noticed a new note on the Truth and Kindness board in elegant handwriting. Kindness because courage needs a team. Mrs. Dottie walked past, cap tucked under her arm, whistling innocently. Friday evening transformed the penthouse into a warm haven of community. The first official homework and hot cocoa night brought together families from throughout the building. Children sprawled on cushions, working through assignments while adults chatted quietly nearby. Mara moved through the space with easy grace, refilling cocoa mugs and offering encouragement where needed. The twins had become unofficial hosts, showing younger children where to find extra pencils and cookies. Tommy proudly showed his mother a B+ on his latest reading test. Mr. Rodriguez beamed from his corner spot, while Mrs. Chen distributed homemade dumplings she insisted everyone try. As the evening wound down and families drifted home, Ethan and Mara found themselves on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below like earth-bound stars. "You've created something beautiful here," Ethan said softly. "We all did," Mara corrected. "It took everyone's trust." Their hands found each other in the darkness, a brief touch that acknowledged something growing between them, something as careful as it was hopeful. "The boys come first," Mara said quietly. "Always," Ethan agreed. "And we take this slowly." Their hands separated naturally as laughter drifted out from inside. The twins were attempting to clean cocoa mustaches off each other's faces with paper napkins, dissolving into giggles. By Saturday sunrise, the city felt smaller, like a neighborhood again. Monday morning brought a quiet kind of victory. The court clerk stamped Vivian's formal withdrawal papers, filing them away in a manila folder that would gather dust in the courthouse archives. No fanfare, no press, just the soft thud of a rubber stamp, marking the end of one chapter. Later that afternoon, a courier delivered a cream-colored envelope addressed to Mara. Inside, Vivian's personal stationery carried a handwritten apology. The words were precise but sincere, acknowledging the harm done and expressing genuine remorse for manipulating truth for gain. Mara read it once, then tucked it into her desk drawer without anger. "Some things need to be remembered," she explained to Mrs. Dotty, "but not carried." Tuesday evening, the twins' bedtime routine flowed with practiced ease. Mateo chose a story about space explorers while Micah snuggled with his favorite plush dinosaur. Their eyes grew heavy as Mara's voice painted pictures of distant stars. When Ethan checked on them at midnight, both boys were still soundly asleep, their breathing deep and peaceful. He stood in the doorway, memorizing the moment. On their reward chart, 2 golden star stickers gleamed under the words "Brave Every Day." Wednesday brought the completion of the scholarship paperwork. The Sarah Hale Memorial Education Fund, named for the twins' mother, would support not just Mara's nursing studies, but future caregivers' educational pursuits as well. The twins helped stamp envelopes, proud to see their mother's name doing good in the world. Across town, the free clinic director opened an email confirming Vivian's substantial donation. The funds would expand their pediatric services and extend evening hours for working parents. The director printed the confirmation and pinned it beside Mara's nursing school acceptance letter in the break room. Thursday afternoon found Mrs. Dotty in her element, leading a Safety Skills for Little Heroes workshop in the building's community room. Children sat cross-legged on colorful mats as she demonstrated simple but effective techniques. "When you're scared," she explained, "stop first, then take a big breath like this." She demonstrated the familiar 4-count breathing. "Now, say your name and where you are. It helps your brain remember you're safe." The twins helped demonstrate, proud to share their expertise. "I'm Mateo, and I'm in our building with friends," one proclaimed clearly. "I'm Micah, and Mrs. Dotty is teaching us to be brave," the other added. Friday became a day of gratitude. The kitchen filled with the smell of cocoa as Mara and the boys measured ingredients for special thank-you gifts. They filled mason jars with homemade hot chocolate mix tied with ribbons and personal notes. The building staff received their jars with genuine warmth, the night doorman immediately adding his to his thermos, the engineer promising to share with his team. At the fire station, the paramedics who had helped during the elevator incident welcomed them with open arms. See? One EMT whispered to her partner. This is why we do the job. Saturday's block party transformed their street into a community feast. Folding tables stretched end to end, laden with dishes from every culture represented in their building. Veterans from Mrs. Dottie's support group shared lighter memories, funny boot camp stories, tales of unlikely friendships formed over mess hall meals. A handmade banner stretched between trees proclaimed, "Kindness instead," in children's handwriting. Neighbors who had once been strangers now passed plates like family, calling children by name, sharing recipes and laughter. As Sunday evening settled over the city, the penthouse balcony held its own kind of peace. 4 mugs steamed in the cool air, too large, too small, as stars began to appear above the steady skyline. The twins pointed out constellations they'd learned in science class, while Mara and Ethan listened, shoulders touching lightly, you know. Ethan said softly, watching his sons trace imaginary lines between stars. I spent so much time worrying about what the world would say about us. But family isn't what the world says about us. It's how we show up for each other. Mara smiled, her hand finding his in the growing darkness. Then we have everything we need. Inside, the hallway light cast a gentle glow on the framed Brave song, now decorated with stickers and small handprints. The twins padded off to bed, their footsteps soft on carpet. Nightlights clicked on, casting star-shaped patterns on walls. Books were chosen, prayers whispered, kisses given. And when the night came, it found them ready,